So my name is Pablo Lituma, and I'm currently on track for a dual master's program of architecture and community and regional planning. Most recently from New York. That's where I've grown up pretty much my whole life. However, though, I was born in Ecuador, in South America. And I'm also from 3 generations of indigenous identities. And I say that because I'm using my education as a process of learning about my family's histories as well. And I'm trying to apply that in architecture and community and regional planning as well. Why I chose UNM, I think that's a huge question. I mean, because it has so many reasons, and I think that every reason that for which I chose it, it was very important to me specifically. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm coming from New York. I began to look for graduate school after I worked for a little bit in the professional field. And one of the things that attracted me to UNM was the fact that the School of Architecture itself also had within it the School of Community and Regional Planning. So knowing that both schools are in the same building was something huge for me, because even though it's a built environment, not too many schools have that. In addition to that, I also was interested in understanding a little bit about Latin America and how I can incorporate Latin American identity in architecture and planning. And I think the reason for this was because I was always interested in thinking about culture and identity in architecture and space. And so for me, those were having those schools and those disciplines integrated to me was a value, was very valuable for me. So currently in my architecture program, I'm working on with one of my professors for a professional project, and this is to pretty much bring in an Andean identity into design. And how I'm doing this is I am pretty much trying to apply cosmology into how it influences space. What I'm doing right now is research into how the Ecuadorian government has been institutionalizing a program, design principles for building schools to increase literacy in children and create a type of education that is a modern education. And so I'm using indigenous identity to help illustrate that a different design guideline that would be based on indigenous identities. This is my 3rd year right now in the master's program. I guess one of the memorable experiences would be that every day I walk through the school, and I think the building is a fantastic facility, and that actually helps in sort of being able to feel like you're connecting in both departments, being the School of Architecture and Planning, and it also has the School of Landscape Architecture. But for me, the School of Architecture and Planning are different departments, and I'm able to engage with both professors just walking down a hallway. One day I'll just have a random conversation with one of my community regional planning professors, 10 minutes later with the architecture professor. And having that facility and having those professors in that facility, I think is something of much value that I appreciate a lot. And I don't know, just also just walking through the building, I guess you feel like you're in a space of creativity, intense creativity, because the space and the facility is so open to encouraging that. Having that community being transparent is tremendous in helping me sort of see what other people are doing and what are the possibilities that I have as well. I mean, every day is a memorable experience, I think. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I have various interests and that I think are important for me And what I envision myself, I guess, doing most immediately is working in the planning profession with an emphasis in built spaces. So whether it be physical planning, but also incorporating community into that process of building spaces and designing spaces. Much further than that, but hopefully not too long, would be to work as a developer. I think that I've always had this in mind, to basically work with community and work for community, and so that I'm able to bring more pleasant spaces for communities, especially communities I think that are at the margins of society. I think that that's something that is very important for me, to work with those communities and to empower them to, feel like they are valued in many places, whether it be here in the U.S. or whether it be in Latin America, hopefully. So I don't know where exactly I'll be, but I hope to be in one of those places working for a community and working with community.